Ever walk into a gym and wonder why some people look like they could toss a car around while others look like, well, Greek statues?
Yeah, that's a pretty good observation. It really comes down to what their goals are in the gym. Some are training for pure strength.
And others for size.
Exactly. They're focused on maximizing muscle growth. It's called hypertrophy training.
Okay, so like on one side of the gym, we've got the power lifters hoisting these crazy heavy weights.
Right, they're all about strength training.
Well,
Their main goal is to increase their ability to generate just raw force lift as much weight as they possibly can.
so they're not really worried about how big their muscles get.
It's not the primary focus. They're training their nervous system to recruit as many muscle fibers as possible all at the same time to just produce that explosive power.
So I guess that explains why they only do a few reps.
Exactly. Low reps, usually 1 to 6 with super heavy loads, often 85 to 100% of their 1 rep max.
1 rep max, that's the maximum weight they can lift for just 1 rep, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Makes sense that you wouldn't want to be doing 10 reps with that kind of weight.
No, you wouldn't last very long.
And what about those long breaks you see them taking between sets? What's that all about?
So those long rest periods, often 3 to 5 minutes, are crucial for letting their bodies recover fully. Got to replenish those energy stores and get ready for that next massive lift.
So each rep is like its own little event.
It kind of is. They're giving it everything they got, then taking time to recover before hitting it again.
Interesting. Now, what about those folks focused on building those sculpted, defined physiques?
Those are your hypertrophy enthusiasts. They're all about maximizing muscle growth for that aesthetic look.
And those guys are the ones who are always chasing that pump, right?
You got it. They're using moderate weights, usually around 60 to 75% of their 1 rep max, but they're doing higher reps, typically 6 to 12%. They're trying to create a lot of stress in the muscle to really push those fibers to their limit.
And I've noticed their rest periods are way shorter, like maybe a minute or so.
Yeah, 30 to 90 seconds is the sweet spot for hypertrophy. They're not trying to fully recover between sets. They want to keep the muscles working, keep that blood flow going to really maximize growth.
So strength training is about those bursts of power, and hypertrophy is more like a sustained effort.
You could say that, yeah. It's about maximizing the time that the muscles are under tension, which really kicks off protein synthesis to encourage those muscle fibers to grow bigger.
So we've got the heavy hitters on one side, strength training, and then those meticulously sculpting each muscle on the other side.
That's a really good way to put it.
But there's more to it than just the weights and the reps, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The way we manipulate all those different variables comes down to the goal. It really highlights the science behind how muscles adapt to all these different types of stress.
And this is where I get kind of lost. Why does that rep range matter so much? Like,
Right.
why do heavy lifters get stronger with fewer reps? But to build muscle, you need more.
That's a great question. It's about how our bodies respond to the different types of stimuli. Lifting heavy weights for low reps is more about training your nervous system.
So it's not really about the muscles themselves, but how effectively you can tell them to fire.
Exactly. You're basically teaching your body how to activate more muscle fibers all at the same time, which leads to greater force production.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what about hypertrophy?
With hypertrophy, lifting moderate weight for those higher reps actually creates tiny tears in your muscle fibers.
Wait, you're actually damaging the muscle?
It sounds counterintuitive, but yes. And when your body repairs those tears, it builds the muscle back bigger and stronger.
So those sore muscles I feel after a workout, that's actually a good sign.
It's a sign that the repair process is happening.
So just so I've got this straight, strength training is like teaching your muscles to work together more powerfully, and hypertrophy is about making them bigger.
Exactly. Think of it like the difference between sharpening a sword and forging a new one.
You're still making the sword better, but the process is completely different.
That's a great analogy. And a blacksmith uses different tools depending on if they're sharpening or forging a sword, right?
Yeah, good point.
Well, we use different exercises for strength training and hypertrophy, too.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So which exercises would you say are like the hallmarks of strength training?
For strength training, the big ones are what we call compound movements. Things like squats, deadlifts, bench presses, all those classic heavy lifts.
The ones that work a bunch of muscles all at once.
Right. Those multi-joint exercises let you lift the most weight, and they're amazing for building foundational strength.
So those are the ones that separate the strong from the really strong.
I like that. They work your body as one unit, and a lot of them mimic real-life movements, which helps build that functional strength you can actually use in your everyday life.
So if you want to be able to move furniture or pick up heavy grocery bags, You need those compound movements.
Exactly. So what about hypertrophy? Are compound movements still important, or do we switch things up?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Compound movements are still good for hypertrophy, especially when you're first starting out, but we also add in a lot of isolation exercises.
Isolation exercises, those are the ones that focus on one specific muscle.
Right, like bicep curls or tricep extensions.
Okay, so those are how you build those picture-perfect biceps and triceps.
Yep. Isolation exercises let you really fatigue those individual muscles and maximize growth in those target areas.
So it's all about adding those finishing touches.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about the physical differences between these training styles, but are there any mental differences? Like, does the mindset differ between them?
That's an interesting question. I never really thought about it.
So, with strength training having to push your limits and lift heavier and heavier weights, it can be super empowering.
It's like you're conquering your fear, proving you're capable of more than you thought.
Exactly. And hitting a new personal best can do amazing things for your confidence and self-belief.
And that can carry over into other areas of your life too.
Right. Exactly. You're not just building physical strength, you're building mental toughness and resilience.
What about hypertrophy? Are there any mental benefits there too?
For sure. With hypertrophy, you're focusing on aesthetics, right? Shaping your physique, and that can be a way to express yourself.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it lets people shape their bodies the way they want to, which can be really fulfilling.
It's like becoming your own Michelangelo, sculpting your ideal physique.
I love that. And that can help people feel better about themselves too, more comfortable and confident.
So it's more than just lifting weights. You're improving your mental game as well.
Absolutely. It's about the total transformation mentally, emotionally, and physically.
So are there any common mistakes people make when they start training for strength or hypertrophy?
One of the biggest mistakes, and this happens a lot with strength training, is focusing too much on lifting heavy and forgetting about using proper form.
Yeah, you see it all the time. People adding more and more weight to the bar and their form just goes out the window.
But bad form is a recipe for disaster. It can lead to injuries, which will totally derail your progress.
It's like trying to run a marathon with a sprained ankle.
Yeah. So remember, with strength training, it's not just about lifting heavy, it's about lifting smart. Now, another common mistake, and this applies to both strength and hypertrophy training, is not resting enough.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely guilty of that one.
A lot of people just go hard every day and never give their bodies a chance to recover.
They're always pushing to the limit. No breaks.
But that can lead to overtraining, burnout, and even injuries. Getting enough sleep, eating right, and even doing some active recovery like stretching or foam rolling is so important.
So you're saying rest is just as important as the workout itself?
It is. You need to give your body a chance to repair and rebuild stronger.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about hypertrophy? Any common mistakes to avoid there?
One I see pretty often is people trying to lift too heavy.
They're trying to lift like a power lifter when they should be focusing on building muscle.
Exactly. Hypertrophy is about those slow and controlled movements that fatigue the muscle. If you're swinging the weight around, you're not going to get the same results and you're way more likely to get injured.
So it's all about quality over quantity.
Right. You're not trying to impress anyone, you're just trying to build muscle. And another common mistake is forgetting about progressive overload.
Progressive overload. That's the idea of gradually increasing the weight, reps, or sets over time, right?
Right. Some people get stuck in a rut using the same weight week after week, and then they wonder why they're not seeing results.
They get comfortable and then just cruise.
Exactly. But to build muscle, you have to keep pushing your limits. Add a little more weight, do an extra rep, or shorten your rest time.
So you're always raising the bar, so to speak.
You got it. You got to keep your muscles guessing. Now, are there any common misconceptions about the exercises themselves?
I'm not sure, actually.
One thing I see a lot, especially with beginners, is this idea that you have to do tons of different exercises to work every single muscle.
So they're just jumping from machine to machine, trying to hit every angle.
Yep. They think more is always better, but sometimes less is more. Focusing on a few key compound movements and a handful of isolation exercises is way more effective than trying to do everything.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And remember, everyone's body is different. What works for one person might not work for you.
You got to find what works for you. It's like finding a pair of shoes.
Haha, good analogy. You're going to try on a few different pairs before you find the perfect fit.
So fitness is a lot like shoe shopping.
In a way, yeah, it's a very personal journey. You have to listen to your body, learn as you go, and find what feels best for you.
It sounds like finding that right fit, that personalized approach, That's what really unlocks the gains no matter what your goals are.
It really is. It all comes back to understanding how it all works, doing a little experimenting, and finding what clicks for you.
I feel like we've really covered a lot today. The science behind strength and hypertrophy, the mental side of it, even some of the common mistakes people make.
Yeah, it's been a really good discussion.
But before we wrap things up, can you switch between strength training and hypertrophy training? Like say someone's been focused on hypertrophy for a while and they want to start training for strength. How would they make that transition?
Another good question, and it's a pretty common one too. A lot of people find that their goals change over time as they get more into fitness.
So it's not like you pick one path and then you're stuck there forever.
Nope. And the cool thing is our bodies are really adaptable, so yeah, you can definitely switch between them.
That's good to hear. So what would someone do to shift from building size to building pure strength?
It mostly comes down to tweaking those same variables we've been talking about. You know, the weight, the reps, the rest periods.
Okay, so they got to change things up.
Exactly. If they've been doing hypertrophy training, they'd start by lowering their reps and upping the weight.
So instead of sets of like 10 to 12, they'd be doing more like 6 to 8.
Right, and then gradually work their way down to sets of 3 to 5, which is more common for strength training.
So they're basically doing progressive overload, but in reverse.
I like that. You got it. And they'll also need to increase their rest time between sets to recover from those heavier lifts. So instead of resting for like 30 to 60 seconds, they might need 2 to 3 minutes or even longer as the weight goes up.
Yeah, you're going to need more time to catch your breath when you're lifting heavy.
Absolutely. And what about the exercises themselves? Do those need to change too?
I would think so, yeah.
Yep. They'll want to move away from those isolation exercises and focus on those compound movements we were talking about before.
Squats, deadlifts, bench presses.
You got it. Those are the exercises that'll help build that raw strength.
So it's less about isolating individual muscles and more about those full body movements that really test your strength.
Exactly. Now, anytime you make a change in your training, it's super important to be patient and consistent.
Yeah, you're not going to transform into a powerlifter overnight.
Nope. It takes time for your body to adapt.
But if you stick with it and train smart, you can definitely make the switch.
For sure. The main thing is just to understand how it all works and tailor it to whatever you're trying to achieve.
It's like having a roadmap.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow.
And remember, fitness is a journey, not a destination.
This has been awesome. Really appreciate all the insights.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
I think we've really broken down the science of strength and hypertrophy training and given our listeners some practical tips.
Hopefully we inspired some people to get out there and start lifting.
Absolutely. No matter what your fitness goals are, remember to train smart, listen to your body, and most importantly, have fun.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. See you next time.